So, oh yeah, that's it too. Apparently it's better if I talk close to this weird device called a microphone. So because we are at the beginning of this illustration course, first of all, I sounded way too serious right now. Does anyone have any questions before we start? Okay, I try to not, leave any room for unknown and fear and stuff like that. Okay, anyway. So, as we start talking about illustration in this class, more in depth than we did in digital painting last semester, I am going back through the way I usually teach this class. And I think I really want to kind of follow through the semester, kind of follow the pace and the path that I take when I work on an illustration, but also including the way I know some of my friends work, because we work all kind of differently. Yesterday in a concept art class, I explained to my students, and that may be useful information for you as well. I explained to my students that when they get some concept art work to do, I suggested that they work on everything at the same time. Because in concept art, if you are developing one specific character and trying different outfits and things like that, for example, it's way better to just build everything together instead of working on one, finishing it, then the next one, and because it's kind of the idea of when you make a cake, you want all the ingredients to be put in at the same time, and you lift things up just together, and you want that kind of unity into the work you finally give to the team. But this is not a concept art class. This is an illustration class, and the process is definitely much, much different. In illustration, ideally, you will have the time to really focus on one image and just stay on this one instead of having to divert your brain into different projects. The reality is I divert my brain to different projects all the time because when you make a living as an artist, you realize that instead of waiting for the feedback from the client, you could be working on an illustration for another client. And because, especially at the beginning of your career, because money is hard to make, and that's a reality as well, because money is hard to make, you take as much stuff as you can, and you end up working on one, waiting for feedback while you work on another one, and then you put another one in the... And you end up working on all those illustrations at the same time. And I found out that one of the luxury I kind of really wanted to give to myself, that's not good English, but whatever. One of the things I loved being able to do once I was like more advanced in my career was that I could actually say no to some jobs to stay focused on what I'm working on at the moment. And usually in a month, I don't take, that will sound a lot for some of you, but I don't take more than 4 illustrations a month to make. That does not mean I work only on 4, because I also have my game projects. I have like a lot of stuff that I'm developing on my own anyway. But so I draw and paint and illustrate and photograph a lot more than the 4 illustrations I just told you. But as far as client work, I try to like stay on 4, and that's usually a good wheel of, I don't know, for some reason things click together. And you will also slowly learn that when you communicate well, most of your clients will be totally happy to give you another week if you need it on a job or something like that. And just making sure everyone in the chat can hear me well. It should be better with the microphone, but who knows? Like, I'm really not a technician with this. So in the illustration class, this is the reason why, for example, at the end of the semester, your last project is only one image in 4 weeks. It's because I want you to really take that time to go through that process. And I said we will talk about thumbnails and compositions and all this kind of stuff. But before we do this, I want to talk about references. And the conversation about references is attached to a lot of things, including the things that everyone is going to talk about for the years to come, AI. Because a lot of the arguments that people who are supporting the current use of AI technology is that AI is doing nothing more than what the artist does when they reference their work. And of course, this is an argument that is made by people who don't understand the creative process that artists, illustrators go through. And kind of like the way I'm going to teach this class today is going to make that point very clear without having to even bother making it, because you will see that every part of the process, including the original references, are part of the creative process. And that's something that is highly misunderstood by a lot of people who don't know what they are talking about. A lot of people think that referencing your work is going on Google, looking at cool images, and using them for your own work. This is not how I work. And I'm going to be completely honest, I have done that. I will do that again, because sometimes it's really important to just go on Google, look at stuff that you are not the one producing, so they can inspire you, and you can include that in your work. But this is not the core of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's very important. Like, I have some artwork of mine that features old photographs that are free of rights that I straight out used into my artwork. Sometimes I will go on websites that provide same thing, free of rights images, and that's a big difference with AI, by the way, is that when an artist references their work with works that are made for it and free to use, or that you pay to use, like stock images, this is fair, this is ethical, this is legal. That's not what AI has been doing. But the point is, the core of making your references is a process that I will call a process of honesty, if it makes any sense. It will, if it does not yet. Process of honesty, and by that I mean honestly diving into yourself to see what comes from you first when you start working on something. When my voice is breaking, it's usually because I'm saying something stupid, so I have to... Did I say something stupid? Probably. So the first thing I think is essential as an artist when you get a job to do, as an illustrator, because again, this is an illustration class, so I'm going to say specifically an illustrator. It's to dive into yourself and look at what comes. What are the images that comes into your mind? And then you can use several forms of language. I could not insist enough on the fact that an illustrator should not always just focus on drawing, but should be able to focus on writing sometime, photographing, talking with friends about projects, talking with a client about the project, and kind of really like the first step that we forget is to just activate thoughts. Okay, and to activate thoughts, it's not because your artwork and your final product is visual, it's an image that you make. It's not because this is the first, it's not because this is the final product that you should start with it. And I find out that the first thing I like to do when I get a job, when I get to work on an illustration, is to talk with the client. Talk about their intentions. Ask them why, and I don't do that all the time, that would be obnoxious, but you will get the idea. Making sure that the client and I understand why they contacted me, what they like, for example. Like not so long ago, I had a client who sent me a perfect brief because they were telling me what they wanted. They were telling me their vision. Then they were telling me that they were open to mine, to my vision. So that's nice because that makes me feel like I have a part to play in this artwork I'm going to create, which, you know, matters. And on top of that, this art director took the time to send me some pieces from my portfolio that he liked and that made him decide to work with me on the project. And that's nice because after 20 years of career, sometimes I don't know why a client messages me if it's for the landscape of dry land that I have done for my role-playing games, if they want my Blade Runner-ish inspired biomechanical artwork, or if they just want a woman holding a sword, usually on a staircase with some birds around, or, you know, what do they want from me? My fantasy work, my sci-fi work, like some stuff that they have seen that I did not even know they could see, a book cover that I did a long time ago. Why are you messaging me? What do you want from me? That's the first step on a professional level. On a creative level, I put my thoughts together and I usually write. I usually use words. Just for myself. Or I think about it really hard until it's just like clear, you know. Whether I type or manually write, I usually manually write those words. And then, only then, usually I suggest if you have time, I also suggest you take a day off. And you keep thinking about it, you know. You force yourself not to start sketching. Because you will realize that the day after, when you sit down and start the work, actually, when you start to sketch, things will be more clear in your head, a bit. That's another conversation, but I will also warn you, what I'm saying is I think is very important right now. I will warn you against the picture in your head, too. To not just dive and go straight for one image that you have in your head. Because as soon as you start to explore more options, you will realize that you have many more images in your head. So the idea is more to pick the best after you listen to the images and to all those ideas that you have, instead of having one image and just try to make it happen. Because this is what I call a frustration generator. If you just, as an artist, have something in mind and just try to recreate it, it will fail. Our vision is always and more accurate and more abstract than what we are able to technically do. So you set yourself up for failure, in a way, if you just think about something and just try to recreate it. You are being your worst client. You are being your worst commissioner. You are being that person who asks yourself, hey, I have that really cool image and I must do it, and if I don't manage to make it happen, I am bad at what I'm doing. And I see a lot of frustration in artists because they don't understand that the first thing that they need to do is let themselves free from trying to stick to a mental image. And instead, explore and react to what comes from them when they start sketching. I know this is a bit abstract, but I think it's really fundamental, and I will have a full video on that at some point because this is a big topic. So once you have your images in mind, once you have brainstormed with yourself and maybe with some friends, you are very welcome in the chat about that. This is really a big topic. Once you have all this and you are ready to sit down and draw with an open mind. Draw ideas, draw what comes from that reflection that you have had. And that's where you start the thumbnail process. We talked about thumbnails in digital painting, I think. We are going to talk about thumbnails more in the illustration class, but we are going to do that only later because right now I want to talk about references, and those references come in an awkward place in the process itself. And so once you make your thumbnails, once the client look at the thumbnails, once you have those sketches that are starting to be ready and you understand that process, it's pretty simple. The thumbnails, the way I will just repeat that really quick, but the thumbnails, I used to compare thumbnails as The difference between someone who is shooting one arrow in the target, just one, it's a good shot, it's close to the center, it's a good shot, and so that's it. And the person who is shooting 10 arrows and picks the best one. Maybe the first shot was the best, but who knows? And the thing is that you don't work under pressure. This is not a competition. So in fact, you have as many arrows to shoot as you want. So you can really pick the best one. And that's what thumbnails are. It's you, instead of thinking about that image, making a thumbnail and then pushing it to a sketch and then to final. By doing that, you miss the opportunity to try to shoot all those other arrows, all those other composition options, all those other way to tell that story. So shoot all those arrows, make all those thumbnails, all those little sketches, really quick sketches just for different compositions, pick the best, and then start to make a more advanced sketch. Involve your art director in the choice of the thumbnails, if necessary, if you don't know. There are a lot to say about that. But at some point, no matter what, you will end up with a sketch that is validated, and you will have to jump from your validated sketch to a final image. And that's where you need references. That's where you need to start gathering things around. And what I define, and that's the topic of today, and what I describe as references is not the same than, and I'm saying that I should have that flashing on the screen, this is not taking a photo of someone on the internet and painting over it, which some people refer as tracing. If you paint over some photographs that you take yourself to speed the process, if that's part of your creative process, why not? You do whatever you want. Like, really, we are talking about illustration, and as far as I'm concerned, there is no rules, there is no, you should not listen to the people on the internet who do not know you and who are telling you what you should or should not do. It does not matter. That's not the topic of the class. But my point is that as an artist, you should build your own references as much as possible. And there is a big difference between tracing and references. And today we are talking about references, the things that you have on the side that you look at and that can inspire you. What I like and why I think, just to talk about tracing just a little bit more, one of the dangers with tracing is that you end up sticking to a photograph or to whatever reference you are using. You end up sticking to it. And therefore, you are kind of canceling your own input. And a lot of what defines an artist's style is also the way they don't do things right. It's okay to not do things right. It's okay to have that kind of mistake here and there or weird flow or stuff like that. This is yourself that is, by not doing something perfectly, is doing something your way, your own way. If everyone is tracing over the same photo, you end up with the same portrait of the same person that everyone did the same way because everyone is trying to stick as much as possible to a photograph. What is interesting with references and what makes that there is a big difference between painting over a photograph and using a photograph on the side is that your interpretation of the image you are looking at as a reference, your interpretation itself turns the work into an artistic creation instead of just some kind of photocopy of an idea of perfection. Does that make sense? We will talk about personal style and the fact that your personal style is really coming from your ability to fix problems and to struggle. So the more you try to avoid struggles, the less yourself is showing itself into the artwork, and the less personal your artwork gets. Again, there is a lot to say about that. It's a complex conversation. But my point right now is that you should use references. Even if you don't have a photorealistic style, even if you don't have, it's always good to look at references to see how things work. Do not start painting a car or a gun or a chariot or a castle without looking at castles. Don't do that. The more you look at castles, the more you look at guns, the more you look at chariots, the more you look at human anatomy, the better you will become at drawing and painting it, because you will understand it more and more. Kim Jong-gi used to talk about memories, and he will put memory above everything else, because when people will ask him how he was able to draw so many details so accurately, so fast, so easily, he will say that it's just because he have drawn them so much and looked at them so much that he remembers all those details. And what made him exceptional as an artist was his exceptional memory. And I think it's major. So, working with references is you being proactive into educating yourself in the subjects that you paint. It's an overall attitude, and that's what I'm trying to convey right there. It's something that should be part of your process all the time. It does not have to be a long, tedious process. The first thing I do is open a software called PureRef, and I'm not sponsored or anything like that by them. But PureRef is great because you just open that kind of like canvas on one of your monitors and you can drop everything you want in there. And so, for example, if I'm working on a project tomorrow with a pirate ship and some people fighting on that pirate ship, whatever, I will, on that one file, I will drop everything I find that I find cool about pirates. That means I won't be able to go outside and photograph a pirate ship and pirates fighting, right? I can't do that. I wish. I can't do that. So what am I going to do? I'm going to look at movies, screen captures, mood, and again, I'm going to use references as in that moment. I'm going to dig into stuff that are not mine. I'm going to dig into the material of other artists. Again, pirate movies, weapons, leather, eye patches, wooden legs, anything I need to learn about a bit. Do you know how a wooden leg was attached? Do you know a pirate hook is attached to the arm of a pirate? Do you know why pirates have a eye patch? Do you know why? Because apparently I have heard many reasons. First of all, their eye was taken off. Okay, makes sense. Hard life, you know. But another thing I heard, and that's something apparently that is real, when during fights, when pirates were attacking another boat and boarding another ship, they will always have to go under, you know, and not under the water, but inside the boat and everything, where everything was dark. And apparently having that eye patch made that they had one eye in the dark, so when they were transitioning from light to dark and everything like that, they had one eye that was ready for dark and one eye that was used to brightness. I have heard that. I don't know if that's accurate. That sounds, I don't know, but that's pretty cool anyway. What I'm saying is that whether it's true or not, it's interesting to educate yourself and dive into those stuff. How many times did I see students painting guns where the cylinders was not in front of the damn barrel? If anyone shoots at guns, it just explodes in their face, you know? So educate yourself, and you don't have to be, you know, you don't have to be pro-gun, you don't have to love cars, you don't have to be, like, it's just a matter of researching the subject that you are painting. Even if you have to look into, like, dark stuff, terrible stuff that you don't look into, but if you want to paint a good villain, you are going to look at villain styles, you know, and get inspired by the world around you in a curious way, and in order that it serves your artwork. So there are the things that you pick from the outside and that you gather. The more you educate yourself, the more you will see that the things you look at are going to change your vision of things. They are going to complexify the way you draw. There is a reason why. When you are a kid, if I tell you, can you draw a house? You will, I'm telling you, I put my money on it, you will have drawn a square or rectangle with a triangle as a roof, a sun, a circle probably in one of the corners of the image, and a tree somewhere, you know, and then little like triangle shapes for birds. You will probably have done that. Why will you not do that today? You will not do that today because you have been through lives, and every day you observe. Every day you look at things, and it gives you a taste of that complexity. And you want to bring that complexity in your artwork to make it more rich. Again, even if your artwork is just line work, like for example, very empty, purposely very empty canvas with just the quality of a line work. There are so many great artists who work this way. Even those people look at references. I'm going to, mention some artists that I appreciate the work of. Right now I'm thinking about Abigail Larson, for example, where her work is really based on line work. And you could say her work is not photorealistic. She does not specifically use photographs and everything in her work, but you can tell that she has a high knowledge of anatomy. You can tell that all the drapes that she uses in her work you can tell that she has looked at it. I don't know if she looks at the reference when she works on them specifically, but she has looked at it so much that she knows how it works. So there are levels of looking at references. There are the references that you gather for your specific piece, and there are the references that you gather forever in your head, and don't throw away your references. Keep folders, keep files, keep building that library. I'm glad that technology makes that hard drives can contain more and more information, because I have more and more information to put in there, When you look at references for this pirate boat that I'm talking about, first of all, you look at pirates, right? You look at boats, you look at the sea. But you should also look at the mood. You should also look at stuff and gather references like, how does the sun hit the water? And if the sun is in the horizon, how do you paint the shadow of the boat on the water, knowing that, obviously if the sun is in the back, it projects some shadow on the water, but how does the reflection of the boat works in the shadow compared to in the light? Is there any differences? All those things are complex. And if you want to paint things well, you need to think about those stuff. What time of the day is that battle happening, So there is really an active process that is completely part of the illustration work. Do you have questions so far? I keep going then. I'm going to share my screen with you all, as always. And I'm going to show you some stuff to talk about it, because I want to show you my process when I work with people, because I don't paint a lot of battle scenes, but I paint a lot of characters. And one of the things that is very prevalent, very important in my artwork, is that the characters I paint have personality. They have personality because I work with people that I know, people I want to work with, people I meet, and that I think, oh, they will fit with this. I'm going to show you a bit about that. And okay, wait. One day I will learn how to make things work easily and smooth. And I'm going to share with the stream chat as well. So again, I will repeat that when I start to look up in the skies, because I have my students on the top of the screen. I'm not just crazy or not trying to summon anything. I'm a bit crazy, and I always try to summon something. What am I saying? And screen sharing with, yes, okay. All right. Does it work for everyone? Can you see what I have here? So, I have two illustrations. I thought it would be interesting to share that. I was two illustrations that were made with my young friend. I don't want to like give too much info or anything like that on people. Uh, she used to be my neighbor, and I'm friend with her dad, and I worked with her like early on because she was perfect. She was a perfect character for what you see on the right is a cover for I think a Mark Lawrence book cover called The Grey Sister, if I'm not mistaken. I'm for sure mistaken. Anyway, it's a young adult slash adultish book, but the character is a young woman who just gets through some hard time and some hard training to become a warrior, basically. And so I started working with her on this. And so that's what you have on the right. And later is an illustration where she was a bit older. I mean, she's still a young. I don't know. I don't want to say shit. That's weird to talk about people that exist on live stream without. I'm trying to be careful with her identity and everything. So, but anyway, she's she was a bit older on the image on the left, and that's when she posed for an artwork for my own role-playing game, and she's a specific character in the game. And so I wanted to share a bit what I did for Boss, kind of, and the way I work when I work with references. So what you have here is, so those are not thumbnails, those are not sketches, those are just me thinking about the pose, the attitude of the character right there. It was not clear if we wanted like an action scene, if we wanted to suggest training, exhaustion, but also the idea of not giving up, pride, going back to the fight. And so all the poses that you see right there are about that, and you can tell already that I was already circling or squaring around images that are a bit less actiony and more like this kind of pose after or before the fight. There are elements in the illustrations that tell us that it's kind of the training has started because she has wounds and scars and everything, but and she looks kind of exhausted, and this is how much I did not bother getting more into details of my sketches at first. I just wanted to have that attitude. And the reason why I wanted to have that attitude, it was because I was going to do a photo shoot with her. Photo shoot for references. And so what you see right here is the photo shoot that we did at the time for this specific project. And so during the photo shoot itself, because I was working with her, because she was into character and all these kind of things, I ended up with photo sketches, like photographs of poses that I did not sketch, that I did not plan to do. Like, for example, the one where like she's holding her hand to her face. This was her getting into the character, basically. And what you see, like the 7 photographs that are on this panel, they're just like the selected photographs out of, I don't know, like 100, 200, 300 photos sometimes I do. With this one, it was pretty quick. Like we had the pose. It's awesome working with her, so the pose was really easy to nail. And then we started painting. I started painting from them and getting the character together. But again, that class is about references, so it's not about the painting process. But I have a bit of other work that I did with her where I can share that. For example, that's for another work with another reference. And so that's all. Like I think I will paint differently with like smoother. At the time I was painting with very harsh hard edge brushes, a bit mix of, but you can see on the side that there was a bit of, I think originally I kind of traced took the dimension of the face to make sure it was quickly on point without having to observe too much. And then on the side you have like steps of me painting that face, and it was used for an artwork that I looked for it, did not find it. But basically that's kind of the same process that I did for all of them. Do you have questions about that?
So, for all projects, are we allowed to, like, I guess, get friends and, take pictures to have them, like, pose for us and stuff?
You are not allowed to work with your friends. You are encouraged to work with your friends.
Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I'm talking about right now. I encourage you 100% to always carry a camera with you, to take photos of your friends. You see something, like you see a light outside, a specific sky. You have no idea of how many times I'm at my window so excited because the sky is awesome. And I'm taking photos. I keep that. A cool car, something different, or cracks on the walls with good texture. Whatever you see that you think, oh my god, that could serve my artwork. Use that camera as a fishing rod, to just pick up what you like. Like, don't steal from other artists. Steal the hell out of reality. Like, pick up stuff. I have at the university. Maybe we should meet at the university sometime. But I have 3 sets of armors that I bought just for references. I have so many swords. I have so many. And how many times did I end up with friends wearing Romaine armor in their underwear with a broom in their hand because I could not find a good spare. And how many times did I find myself standing on the table of the kitchen in a stupid pose just because I was trying to nail a specific angle? Um, I could tell you the story when I was to paint an illustration for. I was to paint an illustration for what was it? It was a local paper from Kansas, maybe. I feel bad for not remembering that, but there was an accident with a tornado, and there was 3 storm chaser people who got killed, and their story was narrated into that paper, and they wanted an illustrator to do it. And here I was, myself on my own table, trying to act as if I was being caught in a storm, in a tornado. How do you model for, oh my god, I'm in a tornado? So all those photo shoots are both awesome and really awkward. Uh, my friend Skyler, who ended up behind my couch with a hammer, pretending that it was an ice pick, to pretend that he was like trying to resist falling into a crevasse between 2 glaciers. It gets fun. It gets really fun. It creates memories, and that also makes that within your artwork, when you look at your images, everything kind of has a story. I can tell you on what you are looking at right now. I can tell you that the katana is the katana that we borrowed from the dad of the model. Uh, so we could have a nice katana in the picture with the right angle, the right reflection, and a really good pose. You know. The sky is a like kind of paint over with me like copy pasting some part of clouds from photos I took at the time over my house, you know, and painted with that. And the building in the back that you see is not mine. It's something I took from. I could talk about them, but it's called photobash.org, and you can buy some photos and stuff that you can use for your own references. And so that's one of their set. I needed that very antique-ish looking building, and I did not have it the way I liked it with the right light. And so I checked on their website and found something I liked and bought the set. You know. And what I do when I do that is that I also put my money at the right place, because I get money from the client to create some images, and to create those images I pay some services or some assets that are created by people who make part of their living by going around the world to take photos of stuff and make references for artists. You know? And so as an artist with money, I love giving some of my money to the people who uh, help me work indirectly. And that's why AI is, again, just not to stab AI, but I mean, I would stab it as much as I want to, but AI does not pay someone to go and take references. Like, we need artists deserve to make a living. That's the thing. We deserve to make a living. And because we deserve to make a living, the people who go around to take photos that can be used as references for artists to create, that process is both ethical and healthy. AI steal from all the databases all over the internet, literally just pick it up as if it's some tokens that they can use to generate artwork where no artist is paid. It's completely absurd. Anyway, so there is this that I wanted to share. There is, so full warning for everyone, I'm about to show some nudity, okay? So there is, yes, of course, I'm reading in the chat right now. Hey Bastian, did you happen that you made a painting without any references, only using imagination and memory? Yes, of course. Of course, I love to sit down and draw and do some things and push them without any references. I've done that many times. I love to do that. The thing is, the more I work with references, and the better I am at working without references, too. You know, that's some kind of... Sorry, I have to answer that friend, or else he will show up at my door, and we don't want this. So yeah, working and creating images without references becomes easier the more you work with references. And there are a lot of artists who work without references, and they are usually people who are really great at observing. They are great observers. They remember how things work, and they can, you know. And some people are not accurate. Some people don't need references because their work is not just realistically accurate at all. And so therefore, like, they don't really... You know, it depends what you do. I'm thinking of some comics artists who have no accuracy into the way they paint stuff. They paint things in a very simplistic ways, but their focus is on the stories they tell, not the realism of what they are drawing or painting. So really, it depends of what you are aiming to achieve, really. So this, for example, is just me painting, looking at a photograph. Okay, and I thought that, oh, my Photoshop is going to do something again, or not do something again. I don't know what's coming. What can we do if we don't have a model for photos, but we want to be realistic? Well, you find a model. It's not that difficult. Okay, that's not the right answer. I mean, yes, I mean that. Find models. You can. It's doable. Or you can use yourself, or same thing, you can find a website with great references. You know, stuff that you can buy and stuff that are free sometimes. There is, I think the website is called, what's the name of it? Unsplash.com, I think, where you can find a lot of photo references. I know that a lot of graphic designers use it, for example. You know, with some free materials that you can use. That's me, what you see right now. No, that's not me, but that's me painting and drawing from a reference and taking the time. You know, I think at the time I kind of did that live, I think. This one or another. Anyway, and I was just showing my process and the way I work with just a bit of lines, just to frame the model, just as a reference. You see, for example, right there, I have like lines that come in just to control the shapes, basically. And then I paint, and I block stuff. I never completely finished it, but I realized that I liked it not completely finished. I don't want to finish that hand. I think the strength of this one specifically is that it's not finished. I kind of like that. Anyway, what else do we have here? Yes. This piece, for example, was also heavily referenced. You have aspects in it where I literally just took a photograph, copy-pasted it in there, and sorry, there are a lot of pixels. It's kind of a low definition of it, but you can see that it's very photographic, and that's it. I used a photo for this because I had to rush and finish that piece, and I did not want to spend another, whatever. But you also have places where you will think it's a photograph from the distance because it looks photorealistic, where it's not at all. It's painted. In fact, I'm just using my brush that is making this kind of effect that creates an illusion of details, but that's it. But the embers, flying embers, are a photo texture that I put on top of it. But anyway, that character, sometimes a lot of people are thinking that I just, like draw and paint over a photograph and that my work is like kind of photo modification sometimes. And it's not. And that's again the big difference between tracing and illustrating from references. This is my photo reference. This is an example of me spending the time to paint this entire stuff. Okay, and painting the character from reference with a light in mind because I know where I'm going with this. You see the time that is spent, and the point is that face is not exactly the face of the model. Not exactly. It's my version of it. It's me, the artist, painting the model for this specific piece. I think there is a video of complete step-by-step of this piece. I should share that at some point. The staircase look pretty photographic realistic. No, it's not. It's just hard brushes, giving that kind of crunch, photographic crunch here and there. Did I look at the staircase as a reference? No, but I have plenty of staircase as references. This was done without references, for example. I was just making circles within circles, for example. It's not like nothing too fancy. But I kind of have a similar tattoo on my wrist, so. Yeah. I will gladly take questions on all this, if you have any. If you don't, I think you start to measure how important it is to use references, because it is a part of the process that will define your final render. It will. Just to insist on that again, for example, working with a model on this, I don't think the artwork will look as good if the model did not bring a facial expression in it. And it's not, I'm not creating or inventing anything right there. I mean, artists from centuries have worked with people as references. People coming and pose for them. Just wait a second. All right. So, for ages, people have worked with references. Whether it's Leonardo da Vinci or, well, I'm not going to start listing people who worked with references, but there are so many. When you start looking into that, you can find this very romanticized idea of the muse of the artist, for example, and stuff like that. Like it has been going on forever, but that's what gives personality to artwork. So for example, lately I've been using DAZ a lot, which is a 3D software that allows me to create exactly the lights I want, and the mood I want, and the pose I want, and the characters I want. And I use it a lot because it saves a lot of time. I don't have to do complex photo shoot all the time, and I pay my models and everything, so it's, using DAZ is very convenient for me from time to time. But it's not the same. It's not the same. Like, because I'm using a software, it means that I don't have a model bringing their facial expression into the game, bringing their imperfections. I could mention that model I used to work with who has a massive scar on her. And she was always very self-conscious about that scar. And to me, it's inspiration. To me, it's what makes her, you know, it's what makes that when I work with her, I'm working with her. And the character in my artwork, and she's in a lot of my artwork. And that person in my artwork is actually a person in my artwork, not just a chick I found on the internet for a reference. You know what I mean? I'm purposely, like, excuse my French, but that's really, I'm purposely showing you the contrast between painting someone literally objectified that you found on the internet and working with someone who is bringing part of them into your artwork. That makes my artwork more fun. That makes me more engaged. I have pictures of my friends all over my images. I have images I cannot look at anymore because they remind me of people that it's hard for me to think about. I have that. I'm not going to end up on a very emotional, don't worry, I'm not doing that. But the point is, that creates a real sincere connection with the artwork, and that brings us back to the word I used at the beginning of this class. At the early beginning of this class, I talked about honesty in your artwork. And that's kind of what I try to say when I talk about honesty. When you look at my illustrations, yes, of course, sometimes I work with materials I found online and that I did not generate and all this kind of stuff. Of course, I use like stocks. Of course, I do that sometimes, but the core of my artwork, I make sure I stay heavily connected to it, personally engaged into my artwork. And working with your references with this in mind will just make you a better artist. It will make you more engaged toward those things you make. And because you plan to make a career out of it, and because you are going to spend so many hours, excuse my French again, but you are sacrificing your butt right now. You are actively flattening your butt. And you are going to do that all your life just because you are about to have a life of someone who is sitting in front of a computer for a long, long time. And so all those hours, make them worth it, Make sure that those hours that you spend, you spend those hours creating artwork that is honest and sincere and creative and different and surprising. And to do that, you need the right references. You need to find around you the things that catch your eye and that you can use, that nobody else has seen. I was walking yesterday on the parking lot and there was a bird bathing in a little piece of water. And the bird was like cleaning its wings. And I did not take a photo because I did not want to be intrusive, and then I had to have that bird sign a model release and everything, so I did not want to start that conversation. But that moment stayed with me for a little moment because there was a shine on the feather of the bird, and I just learned, I just learned. Next time I will paint a bird in a scene where there is rain, I'll remember that. That's references. That's your memory. Your computer helps you. It's like your crypt where you keep everything, and you can go back because you can't remember everything. So your computer is a place where you gather those, I was going to say physical, but those digital information that you can always go back to. Be your own archivist within and know where you place that reference and that book in your own inside library so you can always use it and just make good art. That's all I got on that topic. If you have questions, you can ask them now. You can ask them back on Discord. If there is anyone in the chat who has something that they want to say. Do you work with a single reference for a piece like the one showed, or do you like to have multiple angles of the same model? So what happens is that most of the time I have a sketch, and that sketch is already establishing the composition, and so because the composition is already established, I do not need to have like different angles around the models. That will be the case if you were taking references for a sculpture. That would be different. But because because it's a 2D composition. I know what angle I need, and I'd rather shoot 100 photos with the right angle than 100 photos with different angles. What I do a lot is that I also Frankenstein a lot. So once I take a lot of photos of the model, then I will pick the best arm and the best facial expression and the best legs, and I will just cut and put back together. Frankensteining. That sounds creepy, but that's really what it is. But because I do that with the same angle under the same light, it means that the arm like this on photo A, I can cut it and put it on photo B like that. It's the same. It's the same angle and light, so I can Frankenstein as much as I want. Learning how to photograph model is another complete part of the process. It's definitely, that could be the topic of a class later. Photography for references, we could do that. Slowly, I'm going to advertise for Apple, but slowly, like, less and less I carry my big ass Canon 6D camera with me. More and more, not yet, but more and more the iPhone has a camera that is completely outstanding, and I don't know other brands, but I'm sure like it's the same. Basically, more and more you have access in your pocket to a device that is just perfect for references. Yeah. All right, I'm going to disconnect the Twitch chat and the stream and stay with my students for just a bit longer. So thank you all for, showing up and participating a bit. There will be more.